The men of our generation don't think big. They have no schemes or ambitions past what their parents told them to do with their lives. The men of our generation are happy with mediocrity, with working jobs to please other people. The men of our generation spend every day of their lives working towards another man's purpose. But the men of our tribe are different. We believe we have to become excellent. We aren't happy with living mediocre lives, never progressing, never achieving anything that we want. When we decide we want to shape the world, we take action and we do it. We aren't put off by the hatred of little people. Which one do you want to be, bro? If you can watch this video from start to finish without distractions, without checking the suggested videos or going down to the comments or having TikTok open on your phone, I will teach you the magic of thinking big by the book from the same name. The key marker of success in this world is ambition, right? Because if you ask two people the same question, right? If you ask them what do they want out of life, what is their great ambition, and one of them tells you, I want to retire at the age of 70 after having worked a job I kind of liked all my life. And the other person says to you, I want to open a chain of restaurants across the entire country. I want to be a millionaire. I want to have a beautiful wife and 3 kids. Which one of those people do you think is going to be more successful? Because even if they both achieve half of their goal, right? The ceiling of ambition is already so different. If you're watching this, then you're different. I know you are. You don't want mediocrity and you can't accept an average life, and you're more like the second person. If you can find those big aspirations in your life, then you will become successful. I'm sure you've heard the really famous saying, right? It goes, shoot for the stars and hit the moon. And it's really fucking cringe, yeah? So I'm sorry I had to do you with an Instagram inspirational quote. But it is important. And there is some truth to it, right? The ambitions you set are your ceiling for life. And if one person sets his ambitions lower than the other, they will achieve less, necessarily. Because even if the person with the great ambitions doesn't reach all of them, they only reach half or a quarter, that is still greater than the other person's entire life goals. Whatever your field is, you need to think the biggest in your field, right? So if you're a scientist, you need to become the best scientist. If you're an astronaut, you need to become the best astronaut. If you're an athlete, you need to become the best athlete, right? You need to think the biggest in your field. If you don't do that, you won't succeed because you won't take the actions to become the best inside of that field. It shows that you're happy with mediocrity. You need to think that you can succeed because you can. So the book has this analogy of the 2 foremen, right? And a foreman's like a guy who runs a factory, if you don't know. It's a kind of old book. It's a bit weird. It was written in like the 70s or something. But anyway, so it has this analogy of the 2 foremen. And the one foreman is called Mr. N and the other one is called Mr. P. And I'm sure you can see where this is going, right? But basically, Mr. N, whenever you tell him something, always has some shit to say back, okay? He's there like, you tell him, oh, like, I don't know, some news. And the guy gets up and he says, yeah, but like, that's pretty crap. You could have done this, you should have done this. You're not doing that well in this isn't going that great. Mr. P, on the other hand, he goes, brilliant. That is fucking fantastic. He starts getting excited, jumping up and down, not just by news, by everything, right? Mr. P is your positive thoughts. Mr. N is your negative thoughts. And the book gives the simple suggestion, which is, if you were in charge of these 2 foremen, right, and the one of them constantly came to you with problems and excuses, and the other one constantly came to you with great things and solutions, then obviously you'd just fire Mr. N, right? And it's the same in your brain because you have these 2 competing mental voices, one of them giving you positive input and the other one giving you negative. So fire the negative input, right? And just listen to the positive. Fear is another really important part of this book, right? Fear is the enemy. It stops people from doing what they want to do in their lives. They get trapped in thought spirals where you'll get afraid to do something. Let's say start a business, right? And you will never do that thing because of your fear of it, not even because of the business itself. People will never start something. People will never upload their first video on YouTube because they are too afraid of what other people might think, right? Fear is so powerful. It is your biggest enemy in life, and you could become 1,000 times more successful if you just got rid of the fear. And the only solution to fear is action. So if you're afraid of making a phone call, make the phone call. If you're afraid of paying next month's rent, just earn some more money. If you're afraid of failing a class, study harder. Fear is killing you. It is holding you back, and the only way to beat it is by acting directly and purposefully. Now, the next big point the book makes is a mindset shift, and it says that you need to think of yourself as important. As just as important as your betters and the other men in the room, but specifically just as an important person, right? Because here's the thing is, men these days don't think of themselves as important enough. And I see this a lot because people come to me and they'll ask for advice and they'll think I'm their better. They'll be asking me questions, they'll be basically subordinating, and it's just so clear that these people don't, in their minds, think of themselves as important. They don't have enough self-respect. And there's this example the book gives of a job interview, and it says there's two people. One of them goes in and he basically sits there and he asks no questions. He listens to everything the person's saying and says, yeah, sure, yeah, cool. And then the other person goes in and he says, hi, what can this business do for me, right? He says, what are the travel packages like? What is the fucking days off in the year? How much am I going to get paid? The other person, through his questions, proves to the boss that he is just as important as him. He proves to the boss that he has self-respect, and so guess who gets the job? It's not the guy who sits there and nods and agrees, it's the guy who shows drive and willingness. Here's an exercise that we can do, right? I want every single person right now to get out a piece of paper and list the two most important people around you. The two most successful people in your life that you actually know, right? I don't want you to write down Elon Musk and fucking Jeff Bezos. Two people that you know who are the most successful. Maybe it's one of your friends. Maybe he earns a lot of money and gets a lot of girls, right? Maybe it's your dad. Not that he gets a lot of girls. But anyway, write down the two most successful people in your life. And then I want you to rank yourself against them in a number of categories. And I can't really tell you the categories. You've got to come up with them yourselves. But basically those are like intelligence, charisma, enthusiasm, shit like this. Just categories. What you'll see if you do this is that actually you rank pretty closely to them in almost all of these categories, and maybe even better in some. Maybe you're smarter than your dad is. Maybe you're more attractive. Maybe you have, I don't know, a higher work drive than your friend. The difference is your goals. The difference is your self-respect. The only difference between you and a successful person is that one of them has high ambitions and self-respect and believes they are important, and the other one, so you, doesn't have these same ambitions and doesn't believe in their own importance. You are who you think you are, right? You need to start commanding respect. There is so much of a difference between the guy that is like the hey buddy dude and the guy that's the yes sir guy. That's an example that the book gives. And I mean, obviously, people don't really call you yes sir anymore, do you know what I mean? But there are little cues that you can pick up on in day-to-day life. And there's a different way people treat the, oh, hey guy, hey dude, and like different way you treat other people. And I notice this myself, and I sometimes feel a bit bad for it, but there are some people that maybe I work with, and I just sit there and I think, yeah, you're a fucking idiot, aren't you? And other people that I have respect for. It's just a natural part of human nature. We assign respect to certain people because they command it, because they have respect for themselves primarily, and because they act like someone who's respectable. So to think confidently, right, you need to act confidently. To think importantly, you need to act importantly. A big part of this book as well is called motions before emotions, or emotions follow motions. A really easy way I've put it is just input equals output, right? The things that you do, the actions that you take directly affect who you are as a person. People input shit into their lives, right, and wonder why they feel so bad. They'll sit there and they'll spend their days not working on their purpose, fapping, watching TikTok, eating shit food, sleeping like crap, not taking a cold shower, and then they'll come to me and they'll say, oh, Tom, I feel bad, I feel depressed. Bro, listen to yourself for a second there, man. Input equals output, and the same thing goes for everything. If you have a shit relationship, it's because you've not bought your girlfriend flowers since your first date. If you have shit work life, it's because you've not actually turned up with any sort of enthusiasm since your first day there. Input equals output, and if you can input confident and important thoughts, if you can believe yourself, if you can believe that you're a respectable, important person, then that is the output that you will give. Think about a relationship as an example, right? Emotions follow motions. And say, obviously, the emotion you want to gain out of a relationship is love. And the emotion that you're gaining at the minute is resentment and annoyance. Well, you're not inputting the right things. If you can start inputting dates, kisses, sex, buying random gifts and shit, then the output will follow and you'll get the corresponding emotion, which is love. It's the same thing with acting confidently, right? If you can act like an important person would act, if you can wake up early, if you can do the work, if you can get into the cold shower, then you will get the corresponding emotion, which is that feeling of confidence and importance. Act big to become big and remove the word impossible from your vocabulary. And that again sounds like one of those cringe Instagram posts, right? Like, everything's possible. But this is like a serious point. This is genuine. Because for some reason, people believe that things are impossible, and that's because they don't allow their brains enough freedom to do stuff. If you can believe something's possible, then your brain starts to come up with solutions for it. So there's this example that the book uses, right? And it's about a guy who wants to buy a house. So this guy sits there and he's like, do you know what? I'm paying more in rent than I would be on mortgages, and all I need to get is a fucking £15,000 down payment for my house, right? And he goes to his wife and he says to her, we need to buy a house. And she says, excuse me? And he says, no, we need to buy a house. And she says, that's impossible. And he says, no, it is possible. And the second that happens, the second he finally believes that something is possible, his brain starts coming up with solutions. So he needs this money, right? So what does he do? He goes to his boss the next day. He says, I know you can't give me a promotion right now, but can you at least give me the opportunity to grow? Can I take 10 hours on the weekend? And the boss says, I like your drive, and he gives you those extra 10 hours. You need to save a bit of extra money, so you look at it with your wife and you genuinely decide that you don't need to be spending money on this and this and this. You can be saving 10% of your income every single month. He does a lot of things, right? And 4, 5, 6 months down the line, he's finally got his deposit for the house and he's put it down. And he's now paying less on mortgage payments than you would be on rent. All because he believed it was possible for a second. If he had have carried on with that view, if he had have carried on believing it was an impossible feat, and he'd have listened to his wife and his fucking, I don't know, mates who were saying, no man, just don't do that, then he would have stayed in his shitty rental apartment for the rest of his life and never would have owned anything. There's this idea the book gives, and it's like a thought experiment. It says basically, imagine this. Imagine the biggest ambition that you have. Let's just say your ambition is to become a chef. Your ambition is to own 1,000 restaurants across the UK that sell brilliant food. And you go to your, someone small, a small person the book describes them as, and maybe that is even like your parents, man. Often your parents are like this because they grew up in a different generation, they believe different things. They have different ideas of possible. But anyway, your parents, sure. And you say to them, yeah, I want to open up 1,000 restaurants. And then look at you like, what? Excuse me? What the fuck? Because it is crazy to them, man. They don't believe it is possible for a second, and so they will laugh in your face. They don't believe it. They believe the only possible way to gain success is to get a job as a lawyer or a doctor and go through an established route. But if you take that idea and bring it to a big person, maybe a person who's already got a successful restaurant business with thousands of stores open across the UK, they will look at you and they'll say, yeah, you can do that. Because they know it's possible because they have done it. Big ideas only seem stupid to you now. They only seem impossible because you're surrounded by people who think that. You've never known someone who's actually done them, and so you don't believe they are possible. But if you were to share the idea with someone who had done it, with a big person, they would tell you, yeah, go for it, you can do that. You just have to skip that step and just assume it's true. Then the final thing the book talks about was the power of giving yourself a pep talk. So it used this really fucking cringy example of a guy who'd basically written out an advert for himself. And it was like, every morning he'd wake up and he'd go, Tom is the best, Tom is the cleverest. Buy Tom right now, he's so cool. And it would just be shit like this. But, honestly, the idea behind it is pretty good, right? The idea of pepping yourself up, the idea of inspiring yourself before you have to do things is quite an important one. The idea of before you start a shift at work saying, okay, right, I'm going to fucking smash this shift. Look at yourself directly in the mirror and say exactly that. You don't need to write out an advert for yourself, but you need to give yourself a pep talk. And the best time to do it, I think, is in the mornings, right? You need to start playing the battle drums in the mornings. Start banging on those fucking drums and inspiring yourself for the day ahead. Those are the key points of the book, right? Write out your lofty and ambitious goals. Think big and act. Motions before emotions. Input equals output. I think if anything, that is actually the most important part of the book, right? Input equals output. If you want something in life, anything in life, then you need to input the right things. If you want to be confident, you have to input confident activities. If you want a good relationship, you need to input the things that build a good relationship. If you want to work and be successful in your business, you need to input work. Input equals output. If you take anything from this book, anything from this video, take that from it. Every time you want to achieve an output, ask yourself what you can input to get there. Because too many people want things and then don't actually do anything to get them. And you can't be that person. Because if you're watching this video, bro, you're destined for success and for greatness, and you're not happy with just being a mediocre, average person. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Leave a like and a comment. You'll find those right below the subscribe button. And join the Discord. It's a great community full of men just like yourself who are trying to better themselves, trying to improve themselves. You can come on there, talk to me and the other guys about your self-improvement journey, about your struggles, about your big goals and your lofty ambitions and how you're going to act to achieve them. Anyway, thanks for watching the video, guys. Manifest excellence. Goodbye.